with Mr. Don Albracht, the much more handsome and lesser known brother to Bill. And you've been on here twice, early 300s, with some crazy stories from your time in the FBI. All those pictures, which were insane. And because I'm shameless, I pestered you to come back on because I was like, I know you got more stories. And you have finally, with the patience of a god, come back on my podcast and undergone my harassment. So, for all the new listeners, please introduce yourself, my man.
Well, I'm Don Albracht, as Tommy said, and FBI agent, retired 2012 after 28 years with the FBI, and served in San Diego, New York City, and finished up my career in Kansas City. And mostly worked violent crime, a little terrorism, a little public corruption, a little this and that here and there. Very little foreign counterintelligence, but mostly violent crime, and most of my cases were regarding that type of thing. And also on the SWAT team, also a firearms instructor in all those offices. So had a pretty interesting career all in all.
Yeah, the pictures we went through last time of your SWAT team pictures looked, I mean, if you went into Encyclopedia and looked up like 1980s tactical mustache, those guys, awesome, like right out of a movie, like perfect.
Yeah, I look much more swashbuckling back then than I do now.
Nonsense, sir. I think you look better now. Now you've got the
wisdom. I look like Popeye.
Yeah, now you've got wisdom, right? Yeah.
You look like forearms like Popeye with the perspective of the camera.
Exactly. Hey, man, you got to take it with age, man. You got the wisdom.
That's right.
You can look back at the swashbuckling you. That guy's a dipshit. You got wisdom now.
Yeah. I wish I had it back then.
Yeah. I look back at me 2 years ago. I'm like, you moron, but I'm only 30, so I know whatever I'm doing right now, I know I'm looking back on this in the future. I'm just like, you jackass. So,
well, it doesn't get much better. I still look back on things I did at 60.
Yeah, I don't think it ends. You know how I think it ends? I think it ends with death. I think that's when you stop looking. I think up until the last minute, you're like, man, I was such an asshole.
Yeah.
But, yeah, man, so what story are we getting into today?
Well, this one was, we got into the stories before. This one I didn't get to was, it was kind of a humorous case in a way, but it's also kind of tragic in the sense that it's a stolen valor case. In other words, some guy pretending to be somebody he's not. And usually that involves being a military veteran hero, that type of thing. And then this was like the most pathetic guy you could possibly ask for. We do, as part of the FBI's investigation, our jurisdiction, we do crimes that involve impersonating a military officer and the unauthorized wearing of medals. There's false identification, that sort of impersonating a federal officer. All these things came to bear on this case. And what started out as, innocuously enough, a Navy veteran who was, I think he was part-time private eye and had another business on the side. And he was in the office of a client, and he, being a Navy veteran, he was very keen into the heraldry of Navy awards and uniforms and how things should be. Obviously probably a pretty squared away guy himself. And so he saw a picture on the credenza of one of his clients, and it was an admiral, one-star admiral, which I recall is a commodore, I think they call that. And he is wearing a dress we call mess whites. It's a white, pure, brilliant white uniform, a chest full of medals, a Navy SEAL trident on his chest, which is a big deal. That identifies him as a Navy SEAL, been through the training and all that, which is very, very interesting in and of itself. However, the thing that caught his eye was he was wearing a ribbon at the very top of all the ribbons that represented the Congressional Medal of Honor. And he knew this by looking at it because it's very distinctive white stars on light blue ribbon. So he took a look at that. He goes, wow. He goes, a Navy SEAL, Medal of Honor. I mean, there are several, but the guy was wearing a name tag, which was, sometimes unusual in the Navy. It said the guy's name was Toops, Toups. Kind of a unique name. And he said, Toops, that doesn't ring a bell. I've read all of the stories about Medal of Honor winners in the Navy, and that one doesn't ring a bell. So he kind of filed it away and concluded his business, went home, and he got pulled out his books and started looking at it. It was back, this was 2002. Internet was just starting up, just getting going, really roaring about that time. And he may have been actually consulting the internet as well, but he did some checking around and could not find anybody by this name. And of course, while he was there, he got quite a bit of information from the girlfriend. Now that he looked at the guy's picture, he says, "Oh, hey, how about that? That's just pretty impressive. Who is it? That kind of stuff." So, it's my boyfriend, and and he's, we've been dating for a while, and blah blah blah, and all this stuff. Give him a little background on it. And she doesn't know anything about the Navy, the military, anything like that. So she's not has got a clue that this could be a problem. So he goes and looks at this and he goes, "This guy's a fraud. There's no doubt about it. There's nobody by that name having got the Congressional Medal of Honor." So and unfortunately it does happen where actual veterans will do this sort of thing, which is kind of rare, but it does happen. So he thought, well, this guy's more likely a fraud, never been in the military. He was betting. And so he said he knew the FBI covers this information. So he says, "Hey, I'm going to call the FBI office and let them know." So they do. Long story short, they get the information. The information gets passed over to our squad, which is the Violent Crime Squad. We handle all types of these miscellaneous violations as well. And that's what makes the job so interesting, is you never know what you're going to do day to day. And so I get to catch the case. Now, I'm a veteran, Army vet, and I know a thing or two about military, and not that much about the Navy, but I know a thing or two about the military, and I certainly know a thing or two about officers. And so I have I look at the picture of the guy. I forgot, how did he do that? He took a picture, I think, of the picture, and you showed it to us. And somebody just didn't look right. So I just, I said, well, we'll go at it. We'll go after this. And I go, the first thing we're going to start is go down and interview this woman who was not far from our office. As a matter of fact, it was 5-minute drive. So we went down to myself, actually just by myself this time. I went down and did an interview. I always told people, if one agent shows up, it's no big deal. If 2 agents show up, it's probably pretty serious. If 3 or 4 agents show up, you're probably going to jail. So this time it was just an interview. So I just went down by myself to get some information. So I contacted this woman and I said, "Hey, explained to her who I was." I said, I looked at the photograph there and I'm looking at this picture of the guy and I'm going, yeah, it looks that's the guy, all right. And I said, so I start quizzing her about background, and she's telling me all about this stuff. And he's living with her, and he's gone a lot. And he's, apparently he's works for some secret thing that she can't talk about. So right away, I'm going, okay, it's a secret thing. She knows it's a secret thing, but she can't talk about it. That means he's telling her this crap. And I'm going, that's a red flag right there. Okay, people that work secret stuff don't tell other people they work secret stuff. That's just rule number 1 of clandestine operations. Okay, so I think this is all, they'll start to fit together like it's a fraud. So, but my biggest problem is I don't want this guy to get away. Okay, because I want to catch him. So I basically said, let me sit down here and just sit tight. Do me a favor. I told her right up front. I said, look, I believe he is not who he says he is. And I don't want to see you be in any danger or
Don, your audio's cut out. I can't hear you. You can't hear me. I can't hear you. Fuck. How about you leave the meeting and come back in? Oh wait, you can't hear me. That's sorry for everybody listening. I don't know what's going on. Sorry for the technical difficulty. Dawn? Hey, I don't know what just happened. It probably only like 5 seconds, and it just kind of just turned muffled. I was gonna say, why don't you leave the meeting and then just come back in? That'll probably do it.
Okay.
All right, man. All right. Shout out Zoom for not. Why is this camera not focusing? Just focus. It's a $200 camera. Focus. Not a good look, Zoom. Not a good look. Yeah, I put up even more of the acoustic tiles, and I got them like a stack next to me. There we go. Dawn entering the room. And can you hear me?
Got you now.
Got you now. I don't know what that was. I was thinking for a half second, do you have a buddy in the NSA or something that's fucking with you? Just flipping it off. Just like, hey, Dawn.
Oh, yeah. The NSA actually figures into this story, so maybe
they don't want to be embarrassed. Hey, man, I'm telling you, every time I've had on someone, I swear to God, I had on a guy from the Secret Service that was in the EOD, or was an EOD, yeah. And he just started talking about, like, homemade bombs and, like, the service cut out. I had on guys from the CIA, and the service always kind of cuts out. So I just figure that I've got some unofficial fans watching. Yeah. Maybe maybe Langley, maybe DC. I don't know, but so you said I don't want to see you in danger,
right?
And then
I said I don't know what this guy's plan is or what this guy's background is. I don't think if he is who he says he is, I don't want to see you in any kind of danger. And like I said, I went into great detail asking her, is this guy trying to perpetuate fraud on her or something like that? And she basically said, no. I mean, I'm giving her a few bucks. I've been feeding him because he's living at my house. And I asked, well, where's he go during the day? I don't know. He drives my car around all day. He has to, and he's got, apparently he does freelance work or whatever. Yeah, whatever the guy's doing. But bottom line was nothing was adding up. So I said, do me a favor, just sit tight. I got the information. So I went back. I called this back in the old days. I picked up the phone. I called the office and I said, run this name. And I ran it. I said, approximately this age, nothing come back on the name. And that's odd because usually it'll come back with something on the name. Okay. So I'm going, okay, well, Roy A. Toops, that does not even register anywhere. So that was something right there. So I did a couple other checks, just to see if I could find anything. Can't find anything, which is everybody's got something. So, when you run something, you don't see anything. That means this is probably a phony name. So this is back, even before identity fraud was going on. So this guy just basically made up this name. And so I went back to her and I said, look, here's the deal. I said, I want to be here when he returns to pick you up tonight at 5:00. I want to be here so I can talk to him and find out who he really is and what his story is and why he's, maybe he's a veteran, maybe not, but he's not a Medal of Honor winner. I need to know a little bit about this. So I said, and I don't want to put you in the middle of this. So all I'm asking you to do is do not call him. And I said, and, you don't know me. I don't know you. It's not a question of trust. It's a question of trusting, but verifying. So I'm going to make sure that I monitor all outgoing calls of this business from this point forward. So no, and this is, right about the time when cell phones were just starting, so I said, don't make any, and what I want to do is scare her enough to where she wouldn't call the guy. So I made it without going overboard. I made her understand that this is serious. Something needs to be straightened out here, but we can't do it if she interferes and that sort of thing. So luckily she bought it and she didn't. So basically, I called the office, got my partners down here, Craig Arnold, Doug Spillers, and Craig is a former Marine. So he was chomping at the bit to take a look at this guy. And so Craig and Doug show up. We set up on the business. And sure enough, like clockwork, this guy shows up at 5:00. And there was clearly as soon as I saw the guy, I said, nah, this guy's not. He certainly doesn't carry himself like an admiral. He didn't look like an admiral. He was 46 years of age, kind of pudgy, unimpressive, type of guy. Kind of like how I look now.
I was gonna say, it probably looks like a jackass like me, and I'm like, I'm an Admiral General Delta Force. You'd be like, what?
Yeah. So I'm like, I see this guy, and I go, and so I be like, I'm gonna, got a coat and tie on. I walk up. And I said, I walked up behind him as he got out of his car and was starting to walk towards the business. I walked up behind him and say, Admiral Toops. And he turned around and looked at me, and his face was just, sheer white. Because first of all, he goes, who's this guy? How does he know that? And then I said, my name's Don Albracht. I'm a special agent of the FBI. I'd like to talk to you. And do you know what happened? He pissed his pants right there. And honestly, he pissed his pants right there.
You're not juicing up the story. He actually pissed his pants.
Yeah, as we said, he released a little bilge water.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So, and here's another thing. I shook his hand. When I shook his hand,
not an admiral shake.
No. This was not this was not the handshake of an admiral. This was the handshake of a guy who's impersonating a military veteran, right? So I am confident that I'm on to something here. So weak handshake, doesn't look like him. I also had noted that the Navy vet that spotted this guy also told me that not only was he didn't have the Congressional Medal of Honor based on his research, his decorations were out of order. In the military, the decorations go on in a certain precedent. Highest to lowest, right? Well, if you're an admiral, you got aides to do that, to take care of that, make sure that you don't have to follow that crap, right? You just stay with, having somebody check it out, and that's that. That's something an admiral would never allow to happen. Well, that was another thing that kind of was another clue. But when all this happened, I'm going, okay, we're on to something. So I said, well, Mr. Toops, here's the story. I said, you're being detained. I said, you're not under arrest, but you are being detained. You're not going anywhere. You're in my custody. I said, I need to find out who you are. So we're going to go back to the FBI office, and we're going to fingerprint you. We're going to find out who you are, because I don't believe your name is Admiral Roy Toops. And he goes, oh, no, I am. And then he pulls out this false identification for the NSA. And I took one look at it, and I go, well, this is bullshit. I said, I've seen these things in the back of this magazine you could get at the time through Soldier Fortune magazine or a Paladin Press, make official looking, ID and all this. And this was right out of their catalog. It was like a National Security Agency identification, which, this stuff, it's against the law to make that stuff, So he had his name, Admiral Roy A. Toops, retired or something like that on there. I'm going, oh my God. So guess what? He just got another count of federal charge against him by doing that, presenting himself as an NSA official. So that sealed his doom right there. So I handcuffed him, put him in the back of the car, and we transported him to our office, and we took him inside to our office. Treating him like a gentleman, of course. And we sit him down. We handcuff him to the wall in the interrogation room, and it's right outside that room. There's our fingerprint room. And so right away, I said, "Okay, before we get into the fingerprints, I figured let's see if this guy will talk to me and tell me who he is." And finally, he says, "No, I'm not an admiral, and I was never in the Navy." He says, "I just do that to." So people, accept my story, and I do it for fun. Basically, the guy did it to get laid, basically.
I mean,
so, hey, who among us is not expressing truth?
In December 2012, we got a hotel on Times Square at New Year's. Me and some of my best friends from college. We went down to some bar. We were buying drinks, and we saw these guys, and they're Marine, they're best, right? They're what Class A's, is that what it is?
Something like that.
You can tell. I went up to them, and I remember I was like, I got it, because they're my age, and I'm just thinking I'm a jackass spending money on Times Square. Here are these guys. They've served in combat, and so I went up and bought them. I was basically something along the lines of hey, they can drink on my tab for the rest of the night. It's the least I can do. I'm a pussy. Here, you guys can drink all night. And they're like, thanks, bro. We started talking and stuff, and one of them had, I believe, a prosthetic leg. And we got him kind of loosened up, and I finally looked at him. I was like, hey, between you and me, I go, you guys wear this stuff out of the bar on New Year's Eve, Times Square. You just trying to get pussy? And they both looked at me, and they go, I figure we've earned that, right? And I was like, fuck yeah, man. And,
that's right.
Yeah, but I figure I've earned that right. I would say they have.
Right.
Not Toops.
Right. Yeah. Now, the Toops is a different story, so he's basically a fraud, and he's so the question now becomes, well, who is he really? Okay, so he keeps saying, but no, that's my real name. I go, okay, what's your date of birth? What's your social security number? And I got all this, and I could tell. I said, it didn't just roll off his tongue. Okay, so I ran everything that he gave me, and it came back a goose egg. Nothing. There's nobody by that name. Nobody by that name with that date of birth. Nobody by that name with that. And the social security comes back to somebody else completely different. So I go back down. I throw the papers down on the table, and now it's time for bad cops to come out. I said, listen here, and a few expletives. I said, you ain't going anywhere until I find out who you are. I said, and so we're going right in here. We're going to fingerprint you. And then I'm sending those by fax to the FBI headquarters. And I don't care if we have to spend here all night, but you aren't going anywhere until I find out who you are. And I said, do you understand me? And he's like, he puts his head down. He's shaking. He goes, all right. And he identifies himself as his true name, Ralph Irvin Crowder, 46 years of age. He is a fugitive. Has been a fugitive for 20-some years.
Oh, shit.
And he had basically had committed a bad check offense in Missouri. Now, we're in Missouri, by the way. All this took place in Missouri. Down south Missouri, like, Joplin or someplace like that, someplace down south. And he, finally identified himself and said that he had a warrant out for his arrest for a parole violation. Well, he didn't even tell me that. When I got all of his identifiers, I went to run those to see if anything came back. And sure enough, he came back with a parole violation. A warrant is still out there for his arrest. I said, whoa, looks like he's still got a warrant. He goes, yeah, that's what started this whole thing. He said he assumed this identity to avoid the arrest. So we got into, okay, where did you get the uniform? Where did you get the medal? All this stuff. He says, yeah, he bought it all at a surplus store in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So he bought the uniform, the medals, he put it on, got his picture taken, and then he had these 8x10s made up, and then he gives them to these girls. And after he wins there and there gets influence over them, then he hands them. He goes, "Here, I want you to have this, a picture of me in uniform, because and he do this. He's been doing this for years." And he would literally, honest to goodness, he would travel from one woman to another until they got wise or got tired of his crap, and then he'd move on and find another one. And he would do this to one unsuspecting woman after another. Always a single woman, unattached, in a bar or something, and one thing leads to another, and they think they've got, maybe they think they've got some war hero, or they've got some guy with a government pension, who knows? But because believe me, this guy was no day at the beach,
Yeah.
and so he was, he basically got that's how he made it through his life all these years. Okay, so this is 1978. And this was 2002. What's that? 24 years, roughly.
Yeah.
And he'd been doing this off and on. So
Jesus.
So he'd been living underground, and he actually told me later he was happy that he finally got caught because he was tired of living this way. Well, yeah. Well, he was actually married. So this here. What's funny is that the case spun off. Here we got the guy within a few hours of arresting this guy. We got this case sort of wrapped up. I mean, in the sense that he admitted it. He was, we found out who he was, what he was doing, why he was doing. End of story, right? Not exactly. So now we want to find out, is what he's telling us true? Is this guy a part of a larger fraud ring, whatever? We don't take this at face value. So this launched several search warrants based on his information. He gave us consent to search, but we wrote search warrants anyway. And went and collected, and I had no idea this was going to end up like this, but we collected so much stuff. None of it turned out, none of it had anything to do with a fraud or any kind of perpetrated any kind of fraud. But I literally had enough crap to fill a shopping cart full of junk that he bought on the internet or through the mail order. I guess it was mail order back then, where you could buy through these catalogs in the back of Soldier of Fortune magazine. You could buy a mug that said, Navy SEALs and have your name put on it or something. He had one like that. He had a mug from some ship, some USS such and such, with the Navy SEAL on it. It said to Captain Roy Troop, back when he was a captain, a colonel, level of colonel in the Army, a Captain Roy Troops from the men or something like that. And he had a certificate or a plaque from the CIA. He had certificates from the NSA, all with his name on it. And this is all part of his shtick, basically, to make people believe who he was. And most of the stuff was harmless enough in the sense that it was part of the BS story he told.
Sure.
But when you got into doing the National Security Agency credentials and things like that, the National Security Agency certificates, now you're crossing into federal territory. Okay, so
intelligence community. Yeah,
exactly. The CIA plaque, even that was just like I couldn't. There was no, But the big thing is with this, and I'll give you a little history of the cases a little bit. But first of all, let me do that, because this is like, say, okay, why did I pursue the case the way I did? Well, here's the story. There's an agent in Newark, New Jersey, named Joe Catone, who was an FBI expert on Stolen Valor. And this guy, to this day, still is retired now, like me, but he is still works these cases, probably pro bono if I know him. And what happened was he worked a case in Long Island when he was in New York City, working there, where the company that manufactured the Medal of Honor was actually making copies, and they were selling them out the back door and making tens of thousands of dollars. And basically they had we figured there was 300 custom made Congressional Medal of Honor medals floating around out there, because the government only gave it to one company to do it, and they had to have a contract to do it so many years, and then they got to go up for bid and do it again for somebody else, and a lot of times the same company got it again. Well, somebody, an unscrupulous executive there, started going out the back door, and I don't think the corporate knew about it. I think it was kind of a scam going on with a couple employees, but they ended up getting fined, and all that stuff. And these guys were arrested and charged with, making false copies. Well, Joe Catone, never been in the service, but he has the utmost respect for military people. And he made it his life's work to track down every one of these stolen Medals of Honor. And I forget what he's up to now, but this was one of them. And how we knew, on the back of every Medal of Honor, there's initials. I think, if I recall this right, there's some sort of identification. It's not a number, but it's like the initials of the person receiving the Medal of Honor are engraved on the back of the medal to identify it as belonging to this person, this recipient. Okay, and so that's sort of like, if you find one out there, then it's not going to be a real one. So he went about doing this, and this case fell in my lap, and that's when I learned about Joe Catone and what he was doing. So I talked to him at length and got more information, and I started to start putting together my case, because I was back then the history of the law regarding the Medal of Honor kind of went through a cycle. Let me get in my notes here. If I recall right, how it started out. Like when I was doing it, 2002, it was just a misdemeanor to wear the medal. So that was, let's see, what happened? First of all, I talked about what happened to him. We did search warrants at three locations, basically the place where he was living with his wife, and then the place where he's living with his girlfriend that had the photo in the office, and then a third location, which I forget what that was, maybe as a former apartment or something like that. And we recovered all these mementos, artifacts, and all that stuff, and documents, you name it. But the most interesting stuff that became of interest to the United States Attorney's Office was he had blank identification to create false identification, and he had, of course, in possession of the National Security Agency credentials, and he had other types of things, stamps and seals and all kinds of stuff. He even had top secret stamps and all kinds of stuff for to make things look like it was real. And he had all this stuff in his possession. So I took all this information over to the U.S. Attorney's Office, and I said, I know some of this stuff is illegal to possess, and then others it's illegal to use, and others it's illegal to manufacture, and it helped me sort it out. So this guy did a great job. The United States Attorney over there, the Assistant United States Attorney I worked with there, did a great job. He helped me sort it all out and prepare it for prosecution. And so the big hammer was, of course, impersonating an NSA officer. That was the big one. Second was impersonating a military officer. Third was, wearing the Medal of Honor. Fourth was possession, utilization, and manufacture of false identification, all federal crimes. Now, most of them weren't that serious, mostly misdemeanors. A couple of them were felonies. The impersonating officer is a felony, the NSA official. So we ended up, charging with a lot of this stuff. He pled to lesser, basically we got lowered some of them, dropped some of them. And he was sentenced to 18 months in prison, which makes it a felony. And, he got out after 18 months. He died in 2007. I actually talked to him after he got out. And he called me and said, hey, I'm out of prison now. All this stuff. I'm going, great. I wonder what this guy's going to be up to. But no hard feelings. He was basically going to go about his business. Well, and I never heard from him again after that, which was fine by me. But the bottom line was he never tried to capitalize on it, get money. So that put it in a much lower category. If you do this and try to get money for it, well, now you're stepping into wire fraud, mail fraud, and other types of fraud. So that threshold never got crossed. So that kind of kept it in the lesser category. So a little background on stolen valor. It's a ongoing problem, especially with post-Vietnam. It happened quite a bit after World War II, Korean War II, but post-Vietnam it really did, and I think it really took off in the 80s when the Vietnam veteran was before that they were kind of they were people who were ambivalent almost towards them, because I was of that era. I was during the Vietnam War, but never went over to Vietnam. So I'm a Vietnam veteran, but I'm not a combat veteran. So I kind of lived through that. I remember the ambivalence most people had to veterans at the time because of the Vietnam War. So but then as the Vietnam veterans were recognized in the 80s for all they had done, during a very troubling time in United States history, they started to be put on a pedestal a little bit, started raised up where they belong with other veterans. And as a result, people started glomming onto this. Veterans and non-veterans started, impersonating a veteran if you weren't a veteran, or if you were a veteran, maybe you were a cook someplace and you made up a story that you were a combat veteran, that kind of stuff. That happens. Unfortunately, that does happen. So there was because of the prevalence of this, there was a book came out and called Stolen Valor, 1998, by B.J. Burkett and Glenna Whitley, and they basically exposed what was going on in society with people and embellishing the fact that they were their military record, or they're flat out impersonating military veterans, oftentimes to get recognition or to get something of value. And that book was very instrumental in getting legislation passed federally in the Stone Valor Act of 2005, which basically strengthened federal law regarding the unauthorized wear, manufacture, or sale of any military decorations and medals, and made it a crime to falsely wear decorations and punishable up to 6 months in prison in federal custody. So that came out actually. See, this all occurred in 2002, and these statutes were on the books when I prosecuted Crowder. However, this case came out subsequently, which strengthened the law. I said, "Oh man, if we'd had that, we probably would have, gotten more time for the guy." But the guy was really not a criminal. I mean, people can think what they want, but yeah, he was more pathetic than anything else.
Yeah.
And he was And he had to be punished for what he did, but there was no reason to go after a guy like this. There are plenty of there's bigger fish to fry out there. So we took it easy on the guy because he was just, like I said, he was contrite.
Yeah.
And I remember during a sentencing, we had Roger Donlin, who was a Special Forces captain and got the Medal of Honor in Vietnam and got severely wounded. And he's just a gentleman and a really honest, hardworking, everything you would expect from a Congressional Medal of Honor. Humble. Oh, this guy is just unbelievable, right? Well, he was in court testifying at his sentencing about what a slap in the face this was to all veterans, all military personnel, all Congressional Medal of Honor recipients. Now, we never call them winners; they're called recipients. And this guy was visibly upset. He apologized in open court. He never meant to disrespect, and all this stuff. He just did it. And, well, we know why he did it. So bottom line was the law was sufficient for this guy. But be that as it may, they strengthened the law. So a couple of people got arrested, got caught in the switches with this case. And so somebody sued and said, you can't charge somebody with a felony of wearing the Medal of Honor because we have freedom of speech in this country, even if it's false speech. And basically, the Supreme Court of the United States upheld that without criminal intent, wearing the Medal of Honor was not a crime. It was merely a freedom of speech. You can pretend to be anything you want, okay? And even though we think it's disgusting, reprehensible, the court of public opinion is going to have to handle it, not a court of law. So basically, the Stone Valor Act of 2005 was amended in 2013, which made it a crime to falsely claim or embellish military service, rank, decorations to receive something of value. So that was money, property, or other tangible benefits. Like I know actual veterans who embellished their military records so they could get more VA benefits. Now that's a crime. Yeah. Okay. So we actually I belonged to a Vietnam Veterans chapter, and we had a guy who was a out and out, honest to God war hero in Vietnam. He was a chopper pilot, and he was a hell of a guy. I mean, great guy. And he had many decorations, but this guy still had to embellish his awards, and it got to the point where this became known, and he was told to knock it off. And you know what? He didn't do it. He dug in, said, "No, it's all true. My records were lost." We'll get into that in a minute. How to spot one of these phonies, okay? But he was classic. He was classic in some of the stuff he said. But anyway, as we go on with the case, that's my next segment would be to mention the red flags, because I'm a real skeptic. I'm a skeptic anyway, because that's kind of just the way I am, because of my years as an investigator. I don't believe anything anybody tells me at face value. Generally speaking, some people are pretty good liars, but I don't like internet stuff. I get anything on the internet, I just believe it immediately, because I've been lied to so many times, and I've been burned so many times with so much bull that comes over the internet. So I don't believe anything. I've forwarded things, turn out to be false, and I'm just like, of all people, I should know.
Yeah, you feel stupid. Yeah.
And I got cops and FBI agents sending me stuff that I'm thinking, you guys should know better. This is crap. And so I used to send it back to them and say, this is bullshit, but I just stopped doing it. I got tired. I got tired of doing it. So bottom line was, back to Roy Toops, a.k.a. Ralph Crowder, or reverse that, Ralph Crowder, a.k.a. Roy Toops. He never got any money beside his living expenses, so he didn't get. He did kind of get some things of value. Basically, he was trying to avoid capture on a warrant. Nobody questioned military heroes back then. He had a place to flop and get laid. He enjoyed the attention. The biggest problem he told me, in not confidence, but he told me at one point, he goes, every once in a while I'd run into a real veteran, and I had to disengage right away, because I couldn't. You could tell they didn't quite buy my story. And I said, no, I'd have seen right through it in a hurry. Well, how do you tell? And I see this a lot, especially when I'm dealing with people. Now you got veterans of the Iraq War and the war in Afghanistan, things like global war on terror, all that. You got people still doing this stuff, okay? But when asked for records, proof of what they've done, they always are real sketchy about it. They go, well, there was a big fire back in St. Louis, which there was back in St. Louis, back in it was the 60s or 70s, I can't remember. A big fire burned all these records up. In fact, my father-in-law's records were among the records. He was a World War II vet, and I've been able to piece together bits and pieces, but I can't get all the records because they were destroyed in a big fire back in the 60s or 70s. I can't remember which, but some guy smoking in a broom closet, because you weren't supposed to smoke there, and he set the entire place on fire, burned it, destroyed all these paper records. So bottom line was they did lose a lot of records, so that was kind of a fallback position for a lot of people. But they always referred to my record destroyed the big fire out there, so I don't have anything. The other big thing was, well, everything I did was a covert operation, so, there's no record of it. But I was given the award for it. No. Even if you do a covert operation and you get an award for it, sometimes you don't get anything for it. But if you do get an award, they're going to note that due to it was classified nature of the mission, no details were given. However, you performed above and beyond. Credit to the service and the value of the nation, and blah blah blah, all that good stuff. So you'll still have something. Okay, there's just verbiage that goes with it, but the big thing is they don't look like veterans. They don't carry themselves like veterans. Veterans haven't been in the military, you learn military bearing. And that's something that once you learn it, and if it comes natural to you, which it did for me and which it does for most people, is if you tend to carry yourself like that the rest of your life. And you basically walk the walk and talk the talk. It's something that you have a warrior mentality, and especially somebody who claims to be a Navy SEAL, he's going to have that warrior mentality in spades, okay? So you're going to be able to figure out right away if a guy is milquetoast, that this guy, he may have been in the military, but he probably wasn't in the combat arms, okay? He was certainly not a Navy SEAL, anything like that. So there's a lot of that type of stuff goes out there. Something about them just doesn't look right, okay? I've had guys younger than me, which I was on the tail end of Vietnam. That's why I didn't go, because I went in the Army I graduated in 72 and was in the Army in January 73. And Vietnam was still going on, but the conflict ended, the shooting wars ended right after that and was completely done by 75. So anybody my age is at the very, very tail end of that war. Anybody younger than me couldn't have been in Vietnam. So, because I went in when I was 18, and bottom line is their age doesn't match the conflict. So people said they were in World War II, but if you look at their age compared to the Korean War, they couldn't have been, and if you do the math, they couldn't have been. They would have been 14 or 15 years old. So that's a big red flag. And, and the other thing, the big thing is that real heroes don't tend to advertise the fact. They might, if you go to their house, you'll come into like my place here. I've got, I got a veteran tag on my vehicle. I've got some stuff on the military behind my wall here, but I don't wear it on my sleeve. It's not that kind of thing. I get on my truck. I've got a couple things on it because, I can't put FBI stuff on it. Somebody will key my car.
Yeah, so, that's true.
So I put, and who would want to do that anyway? So I put military stuff in my car. So I got my unit patch and some airborne wings and the 82nd Airborne, of course, and the Vietnam Veteran Association I belong to, an American flag. That's it. And the 505th Infantry Brigade that I was part of. So that's the extent of it. Just on my car. If
I ever do Stolen Valor, I'm going to go right to the top. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. I'm going to walk around in that uniform.
And then you got to get the badge. You got to get that badge they wear.
I won't even have that. Fuck it. Yeah. You
got to be old.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm a prodigy. You wouldn't know about me. It's classified, Don.
Exactly. Well, that's essentially what these guys do. They'll and some people are mentally ill. So, these are the guys that you look at and you go, what is this? He looks like a soup sandwich. I mean, it's a horrible uniform, and they're nothing matches. They look like Napoleon. He's got his hand in his jacket almost. I mean, it's one of these deals. I mean, it's just, the brushes on their
like 1800s, like
right.
Prussian shit.
Yeah,
Otto von Bismarck.
All this stuff on. I mean, those guys are kind of wacky.
Powdered wig.
But it's the guys who take the time to research and put together a uniform for the purposes of embellishing a fraud or perpetuating a myth that they have established themselves. Those guys. Those are the ones that I'm real suspicious about. Whenever I hear, he did some real sneaky stuff in the military, I go, maybe, maybe not. Unfortunately, I've gotten so jaundiced by this. I don't believe anything anybody tells me, especially when it comes to their military record, unless I know otherwise. I don't challenge people about it. I just don't. I just choose not to believe it. Over time, if I, ask enough questions or if they tell me enough, I'll be able to sort it out. But I just generally assume, most people are probably exaggerating or, it doesn't fly at all.
Shit, yeah.
Yeah. Well, nowadays, what's beautiful about the internet, it has a lot of downsides. But one of the good sides is there is about a half a dozen different websites you can go to now to if you think somebody's a phony, you can go, or if you just want to check them out, just because they tend to bullshit. Well, then this would be an option. There's the United States Army Special Forces .com or .net or something like that. U.S. Army Ranger has a website you can check. The SEALs, USN SEAL has a I think it's .net, I think, or .org. USMC SOC, which is Special Operations Command, they have one. The United States Air Force Special Operations Force, SOF, also has a website where you can go in, you can put in a name and search a name. That's not classified material, but you can find out if anybody was a member of like a Ranger unit or a Special Forces unit or a SEAL unit, things like that, or maybe somebody like in the Air Force, like a combat control team or something along those lines. And then there's www.fakewarriors.org, and there's another website straight up, which would be pretty easy to find, stolenvalor.com, which is, you can go in there and find just about anything on anybody. So, guys like me, I served, 3 years stateside the entire time with the 82nd Airborne Division. I've been nowhere, done nothing. But I did my time. I got out, and a guy like me can embellish his military record quite a bit if he chose to. Yeah. So, but I'd never do that, but veterans are better at it than non-veterans for obvious reasons. So you have to be careful. So you may have an honest-to-God veteran who just exaggerates his military service, which a lot of people do. It's very common. Like I say, my motto is when I'm telling a story, bullshit makes the story, right?
Yeah.
You add a little color to a story, it makes it sound better and everything like that. But it's not necessarily true. But it's like poetic license. You just take a little license with the facts.
Yeah, like who the fuck cares how real a story is, right? It's like when comedians.
They just want a good story.
It's like when comedians say, "If this really happened," then I'm like, I don't give a shit. Just make me laugh. I don't care. I don't enjoy Star Wars or Transformers any less because I'm like, did this really happen? I'm there to watch big robots punch dinosaurs. Like I don't. Clearly, I've tuned out mentally. Like, I don't care, right? You just want to laugh. You're all having beers. Yeah. Just make me laugh. I don't give a shit. Yeah. Well,
it's like you may have heard this, the difference between a fairy tale and a war story. Well, a fairy tale starts out once upon a time. A war story starts out, this ain't no shit.
Yeah, no shit, right? There I was, knee deep in grenade pins. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
No shit.
Yeah, that's exactly how those things started. So, like I said, this case was not the most famous or anything, but it was an interesting case from the standpoint was the entire office was talking about it. I mean, because every day I'd bring in more crap, and everybody couldn't believe all the stuff, and it was fondly referred to in the office as the Admiral's case. And I had a buddy who would call and leave voicemails for me. He'd wait till he knew I was out of the office and call my desk extension. And he'd call, especially when he found out the guy was out of prison. And he'd call, and he says, "Hey, Albracht, this is Toops. I'm out of prison, and I'm coming for you. I'm coming for you.
I'm coming for you, motherfucker." It's.
I was dying laughing. I was a kid. Of course, I knew who it was. And it was just because the fact that this guy had a mean bone in his body was a stretch to begin with. He couldn't fight his way out of a wet paper bag. But this the kind of grief I took for this case. But it was like I said, one of my more memorable cases because of where it took me. And it was not, nothing nobody gave me no commendation for it or anything like that. Actually, I take that back. The Medal of Honor Society did give me a commendation because I recovered the ribbon, the actual medal rather, was never recovered. He left it at a girlfriend's house, and we tried to run it down. We couldn't find the girlfriend. He couldn't remember the name and all this stuff. So that is still out there somewhere. So the actual medal never got recovered in the photograph, and because the uniform and the photograph were all left with a girlfriend, and I think if I remember, we sent leads out to recover it, and she had destroyed everything. She had taken it all out and burned it or something like that. She was angry with him or something like that. So bottom line was, so it did get taken care of. But it was just like I just remember that I took all that stuff that this guy had fabricated to this persona, and I put it in a big box and I shipped it to the Medal of Honor Society in South Carolina, in Charleston. And they have a society there which is dedicated to the Medal of Honor recipients in the United States military from day one up to the present day. And it's a fabulous place to visit. I'm told, it's on my bucket list, a place to go to. But they've got all these exhibits and stories and all this stuff down there. And so I sent all this stuff there. And my understanding was back then they were going to put a little display together and say, this is what, to highlight the stolen valor aspect of the case, and say, there's people out there that are, profiting or, getting undue recognition on the backs of Medal of Honor recipients, and said, this is how far some of these people will go, and they're going to have a synopsis of a case and all that. And I always thought, man, I'd like to get down there to see it, but I never did. But they did give me a nice certificate, so I'll, by the time I get down there, everybody that knew about the case will be dead. So,
I want to try to find, if anybody listening to this podcast knows anyone that maybe you suspect is doing stolen valor, I want them to get him or her on the podcast, and then 5 minutes in, Don, you'll join the meeting.
Yeah, ask questions, huh?
You'll start going off questions. It'll be like To Catch a Predator. Remember that show on Dateline NBC? Yeah. It'll just be that. We'll just start catfishing. Stolen valor guys.
Well, let me make a prediction. The audio will go out.
Yeah, goddamn right it will. Well, that's the thing.
That's where it's going to go.
We'll never upload it.
I can't hear you. I think we lost audio. Well,
sorry guys, I gotta go. That's when you see the FBI SWAT team in ninja suits coming in the back door just as the audio goes out. I'll be like, I guess that was a flashbang.
Well, exposing people like that is what you have to do now, because that's all you can do. Unless they're like the guy I was talking about from the Vietnam Veterans Association, who the other veterans actually went after this guy and exposed him, and he actually he refused to cooperate and admit guilt, and he went to jail. He went to jail rather than admit, and we proved, they proved that it was a fraud, and he had gained something of value. That's why he went to jail, and he got out of jail, and I think he still maintains that it's false, which is well, you could get into the psychological aspects of that, but that's really bizarre. That's narcissistic, really.
That's insane.
So it is, yeah. But he was a fraud, no doubt about it. There's so it basically. There are guys out there who will go to their grave saying, no, that's what happened. So,
part of me, a small sliver of me, kind of respects Toops. Take this with a grain of salt. Yeah. that he looked you dead in the eye and gave you an NSA credential.
That took stones, I'll tell you, because you know what? I know I've seen these phonies before. This was as soon as he goes, I looked at it, I go, well, I know he's not an NSA official. And I look at it, I go, no. I said,
what if the color just drains from your face if you're in there running fingerprints and you get a direct call from an untraceable number and it's director of the NSA? It's like, back off.
Release that man.
Back off, Albracht. This goes up higher than you could possibly know. This is some Oliver Stone shit. This is
right.
This, you tug on this thread, it goes all the way back to Lee Harvey Oswald. It's just, man, it's, if you were gonna just look at someone dead in the eye and say NSA, CIA, part of me wish Toops kind of held on to it a little longer. Be like, your fingerprint came back with nothing. Be like, exactly.
It's by design. It's hard to do that when you pissed your pants.
Well, that too. No, that you're right. That he wouldn't have got through training. But man, if you ran my name and nothing came back, I'd be like, yeah, it's because I'm good at my job.
Right.
If you're
that's another red flag.
Yeah.
Every clandestine operator has a story, a backstory. They call it backstopping. We used to do with our undercover agents.
Yeah. We
have a story behind it. If you check the guy, something will come up.
Yeah.
If nothing comes up, that means he doesn't exist. So it's got to be backstopped.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like Joaquin Garcia, right? The guy I had on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Big Jack.
Yeah. He said, when he was down in Miami doing undercover stuff, he actually made sure to find a cemetery with, it was like whatever fake last name he was using. I don't think it was the Falcone case. I think it was something else. But he actually went and found a cemetery of two matching, it was something like Lopez. And he made sure to remember where it was. So sure enough, one day when the mob boss is like, Jackie, let's go pay respects. Without missing a beat, he was like, let's go pay respects. Wasn't like looking around. He just went straight there. Then he goes, I was just praying to God that, the actual kids weren't there. Like, who are you? But you backstop it, right? Just have that ready.
Right. Yeah.
Or if you're not doing any of that, just take the Winnie the Pooh approach. If you tell the truth, you never have to remember anything.
Yeah. That's it.
Just be a jackass like me. I'll look you dead in the eyes and tell you. I'll be like, I still crouch when I hear a gun go off. Like, I'm not going to try to be like, I was in Delta Force. I've had people, when my hair's shorter in college, when I was a lot lighter weight, all the time people ask me, are you military? I'd be like, fuck no. I'd be like, no, man, I'm not even going to try. I'm like, no, I'm taking organic chemistry. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Bullshit, I can't carry a rucksack. I don't eat MREs. No. It's so just don't do it, I guess.
No, it is. I mean, it's like, and that shows a pathological problem. I mean, if you have to be someone else in order to get through life, then you've got some issues, So that's something, especially like me. I've lived in the shadow of a couple honest to God military heroes. I mean, and they're like my role models, my two brothers, but that doesn't change who I am.
Yeah.
So that was them and I'm me. You have to be your own person.
Yeah.
So it's there's always going to be those greater than you and lesser than you. So the sooner you learn to accept that, the better off you're going to be.
Yeah. Just accept what you have and just be, if there are, I have friends, most people I meet, much smarter than me. If I have friends that are doctors and lawyers, I'm just like, no matter what I do, like, I'm just not going to, my brain, I don't have the same RPM or horsepower that they do. Like, I can work harder, but like sometimes you just meet a guy that was born with a Ferrari for a brain and you're like, well, fuck that guy. But like, but I don't know, look at someone else, find someone dumber than you and be like, at least I'm not that guy, Like, right?
That's the story of my life.
That's exactly. Just come on this podcast and be like, at least I'm not Tommy. You'll leave here feeling better. Be like, look at this jackass. Talking about psychological disorders. I'm sitting in here in like a styrofoam box, I'm not exactly, I don't exactly have all the screws bolted in. But yeah, Don, let's wrap this one up. But real quick, if I can. So the importance is, I always looked at things like Stolen Valor, and yeah, I kind of lean towards freedom of speech. But more than anything, I guess I was always surprised that I was like, is this just is it to show respect for actual veterans? But I never thought about what you said. It's, well, you have to make sure they're not actually committing fraud and impersonating a military member, a member of the military. Is it, how much of it is, or at least for the listeners, could you explain, as you explained to me? So it's not just like, fuck these guys, my brother's, a veteran, like, because that's, that can't be a basis for law. That's based in emotion. It is, it's fraud.
Right. And I think the law, I hate to say it, is probably correct. I mean, unless there's some criminal intent and you're committing fraud, I mean, otherwise you're just bullshitting, okay? And the problem is that
that's not
there's no law against that.
That's not, it's I have friends that that combat veterans from Iraq, my age, and I remember asking them about kneeling at football games, and they're like, they're pissing on the graves of my dead friends, but they're like, at the same time, the very thing you are fighting to protect is a society where you don't get beheaded for stomping on the flag. As disgusting as it is, it's a weird catch-22 where it's, I've had on your brother, I've had on military guys, and I have nothing but respect for them. And someone that does claim that they are this person, it's I mean, you're lower than pawn scum. But at a certain point, it's like, is the beauty and glory of what guys like that do is because they protect a society that is so free that you can kneel at the anthem. It's, if you don't clap for the supreme leader in North Korea, they chop your hands off, right? Sure. It's a hard pill to, again, I always point to my great uncle Rich, 18 years old, Omaha Beach, survived. He was actually in the FBI for 50 years after that. Wow. Insane. Passed away several years ago, but so I don't say it lightly, like I don't know what I'm saying. No, he had a dagger with a swastika on it that he took from the body of a soldier that he killed in Normandy. It's as real as it gets. But it is the thing you're defending is a place where not commit fraud, but you are free to bullshit. That's comes with the anyone can buy a gun. That also means we have school shootings. But it's also everyone's armed to the teeth, and you're supposed to overthrow a tyrannical government. I'm free to go eat Big Macs every day. I'm also free to die of heart disease. It's a kind of a, that's a tough.
Choices.
What?
Just choices.
Yeah, it's a tough pill to swallow. But I mean, that is the ultimate. Now, that doesn't mean you have to show them any sort of respect, and I'm not saying that you might give them a black eye or something, but that's
the key right there. The court of public opinion will deal with people like that. Yeah. And that's what, so freedom of speech is fine. Freedom of speech allows us to know who the assholes are.
Yes.
And then we can deal with them accordingly.
Absolutely.
But, and one person's hero might be another guy's jerk. It just depends.
Sure.
Depends on your audience. So
sure. Yeah. Comes in a fraud. Well, then there are a whole set of laws that deal with that already. But yeah, freedom of speech is kind of like anti-aircraft tracers, right?
Yeah.
You can triangulate the assholes. You're exactly. There he is. That guy over there. You can see right where it's coming from.
Well, that's the big thing. The government should not be in the position of determining whose speech is allowed to be permitted and whose isn't. Well, and that's where we're headed, I'm afraid.
Shit. Well, yeah. I mean, you do see that with it starts as a noble endeavor. We're halting stolen valor, and it's like, well, yeah, I guess you're right. You can't bullshit. But how many steps removed and how many years removed is it until all of a sudden it's you tweeted that you don't like the president? 20 years in Guantanamo Bay.
So that's a whole other aspect. Big tech, exactly. That's not government, but it's tyrannical no matter what.
It is. I've been kicked off here twice. I'm back on my third strike. I say one bad word, I'm gone. And but I mean, it's how long until, so like right now I got booted off for episode 370 with a CIA veteran, Claire Lopez, talking about election fraud, and episode 411 with Dr. Hodkinson, a Cambridge MD, who was just talking about the inefficacy of lockdowns, not even anti-vax. But those are two topics that got me kicked off. Now, people might say, oh, well, that's good. You got to stop misinformation. You got to, all right, okay, I'll play devil's advocate. I'll take that with a grain of salt. But now we're now on two topics you can't talk about.
Right.
How long until there's a third, and then a fourth? How many years down the road can you no longer post videos of people being unarmed people being shot by cops? When can you not post a video of, hey, I think there's fraud in my local government? The people that are using these things, I think the vast majority of people are good. The people that are pushing for the Overton window to shift to where certain things can be suppressed, they don't have good intentions. No. These are the assholes that want the tree of liberty to be parched. These are the people that are like, ooh, we can push this. And now all of a sudden it's 2035 and you're not allowed to question what's in the Pentagon appropriation bill. What are they doing with $800 billion? Right? It's
good when you start suppressing speech, no matter what it is, even like, Nazis. I remember as a kid, I was probably maybe high school, maybe college, I can't remember, but I remember the Nazis wanted to march in Skokie, Illinois, which is predominantly Jewish. And I'm going, and they, of course, they at first they refused to let them do that. I said, yeah, they shouldn't let. Wait, that's just going to be trouble, okay? And I thought, that I thought that was a good idea. But then the court came back. No, you can't prevent. It's freedom of speech now. Unless they can make an overriding case for safety and that kind of thing, which I don't think they could, they had to let them march. And I remember thinking at the time, going, well, yeah, when you think about it, that's when I first learned that all speech is protected, even speech you don't agree with. Yeah. Obviously, I'm not going to side with the Nazis, but
sure,
I guess we got to listen to them.
Hey,
we don't have to. We don't have to agree with them, but they have to be heard.
Hey, Kathy Griffin, the so-called comedian, and in 2017, she went viral with that photo of her holding a bloody severed Trump head.
Right.
Now, I don't know what the technicalities of that are when it comes to like the Secret Service visiting you, but me as a conservative guy who openly likes Donald Trump, I remember saying when it came out, I was like, that's disgusting, but I'm like, I think you're allowed to do it.
Yeah, you are.
It's unless you're saying go get me a real one. Well, okay, now you're calling for threats, but I think you're allowed to. It's disgusting. I think you're allowed to. If you want to,
we've seen quite a bit of that in the last few years about that. Yeah,
we have, and it's if we push for the inability for that, we will become the thing we are suppressing. If we look at someone saying, I want to march around as a Nazi, and we say, you can't do that, that's a wrong ideology, that is laying the framework to become a Nazi state.
Exactly.
It's disgusting. It's absolutely I went to a school in deep South Georgia. I heard the full hard R N-word more times per day than I had in the previous 18 years of my life.
Yep.
I think I'm free to cut those people out of my life, and I did.
Yeah.
I think you're free to say it. It's disgusting.
Honestly, I think when we banned the N-word, that was the beginning of this stuff. Now
someone's going to take this clip out of context. Right, Two white guys saying it all started when they banned the N-word.
Yeah, exactly, and that's probably right. That's probably what they'll do. But it's disgusting. Yeah, and we know what it means. Yeah, but who's going to know down the road how bad it is if we aren't allowed to say it? No one, you go 20 years from now, kids aren't going to understand. It may come back because people won't understand what it means, the real meaning of it. Yeah,
exactly. So. It's and this is more of like a pet peeve of mine, but it's like when we make things unsayable, all you do is give them power. So, like, for instance, the corollary is everyone says, you can't say the N-word, but you can say cracker. If anyone calls me cracker, I don't care. Now, so I use this, and it's kind of a thought experiment, is like, what is magic, right? What is, in any Harry Potter or fucking Lord of the Rings, what is magic? Magic is something you say, and it has a physical effect at a distance. Abracadabra, and the light turns on. I say something, and there's a physical manifestation in the real world. Let's say Don's black, and I call him the N-word. I'm in Maryland. Don's in Missouri. Don, he straightens up. He gets, what did you just... Yeah. I just had an effect. I just kind of fucked up your afternoon. You go to your wife and you're like, man, this guy said this. You gave me that power because I'm not allowed to say it. You don't have an immune system built up to these things. I get it. I'm also white, grew up in a well-to-do family, and I don't know the plight of racism. I understand that. But the minute we start taking away words, I'm Irish. You can call me a dirty Mick. You can say Irish need not apply. I don't give a shit because you're allowed to say that. Now, if that had been outlawed my entire life, and then as we're signing off, Don goes, you dirty Irishman, I would sit here and I'd call my dad. This guy said this to me. Whoa, what did you say? And my mom would be like, oh my God. But instead you can be like, Tommy, you're a dipshit, retarded, faggot, moron, bitch. And I go, you're not wrong. It's that's
right.
When you suppress these things, all you do is give them power. That's all you're doing, Well,
I think I'd like to know when somebody says something, it identifies who and what they are. So if you're not allowing that, the big thing, should we say, hey, you shouldn't say these words. These are fighting words.
Sure.
Yeah. These are fighting words. Okay. So you don't say those things. If you do say these things, expect consequences. Well, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's different.
Yeah.
But just to say, it's forbidden from our lexicon. And like you had people reading Mark Twain, for crying out loud. And it was, and now the professor or teacher or whoever it was that actually read that in class was actually disciplined or fired or something. I mean, come on. I mean, now you're getting stupid.
It's when you remove it from now in a court of law, no, you're allowed to say it. Now, does that necessarily mean if you go, my best friend lives in Baltimore, if I go visit him and we go to a pub and I'm just letting the N-word fly, hey, there's a high chance you guys are going to be the pallbearers at my funeral in the next, 24 hours. But the idea that because what we're seeing it right now is you can say for 20 years, oh, well, you know what? It's good we didn't let the Nazis march. Oh, it's good you don't say. Well, how does it start creeping up? Well, now you can't talk about election fraud. Okay. Well, now you can't talk about a COVID vaccine. Okay. Well, what about the people that maybe take the vaccine and die? Are they not allowed to hear that? How long? Okay, now what happens when another Trump gets in office and he goes, no more dash cam videos of or body cam videos of unarmed black guys getting shot. They can cite national security. We can't have any more riots. Well, now we don't get to balance out the powers of the police because we go, did you hear someone got shot? And I go, I'm not posting it. I'm not trying to get my channel. But you can see how it creeps up until soon, all of a sudden, did you speak bad about the king? And we become the very thing we fled from. So on that note, everyone should swear like a sailor and say everything you're not allowed to say. Find the edges. Find what gets you a black eye. That's nothing wrong with a good black eye. I think that's probably only ever made someone stronger. I've got punched in the face, and yet you'll learn your boundaries. You go, okay, noted. There's the out of bounds line.
That's right.
You get slapped by a girl, and you go, noted. Noted, that wasn't a compliment. That was a drunken slur. Maybe not the nicest thing to say. Noted. And you find the boundaries to your life, and then live in that box. And you'll probably be happy. But if we don't have your audience, if we know the crowd, if we don't have these boundaries, you're going to walk off a cliff.
Yeah.
I can't wait until this podcast is the size of Joe Rogan's and someone digs up a clip in 10 years of me and another white guy with a flat top going, "It all went wrong when they banned the N-word." And it's gonna be you down at the Medal of Honor Museum, and they're gonna be like, "That's the racist FBI guy." And
the only thing that make it better is if I had a German accent.
I know, right? Listen, the entire problem started when we allowed intermarrying of races. Once we keep things pure, that is when we excel. And it's like, oh, Jesus. But that's where it goes. Now, again, it doesn't help that I have blue eyes and I'm white as snow. But, well, yeah, I guess your last name, Albracht. Albracht!
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, Albracht. That's as German as your kids right there.
I mean, that's basically Albracht, right? Arbeit macht Fret. That's like Albracht macht Fret. Albracht will set you free.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out what it means.
Yeah.
It means, I guess, means something in German like the pigs are loose in the kitchen or something like that.
Don't talk about yourself like that, Don. You're beautiful.
That's it. Yeah,
Don.
Well, it's been fun.
Your stories are fucking amazing. I love you. Are always welcome on my podcast. Please don't be a stranger. And yeah, man, thanks for coming on. Thanks for giving me an hour of your time. And I guess shout out Admiral Toops.
Yeah.
You know,
God rest his soul. Yeah.
If you're gonna, maybe there's one good thing to come away with that, and it's when you're going to try to get laid, pretend you're the admiral that your wife thinks you are.
Yeah, pretend you're wealthy. That'll always get that.
Just lie about your wealth.
Yeah, money is the best aphrodisiac ever.
You know, I'll respect his confidence. Fake it till you make it. That's what I'm doing. Yeah. Maybe don't do it with valor, but yeah, you know, look a woman dead in the eyes and say, "I am the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff."
No problem.
Hey, Mr. Albracht, thank you so much, sir. And I'll send it to you when it's uploaded, all right?
Great, Tommy. Always a pleasure. Thanks a lot.
Man. Yep, thank you. God bless everybody. God bless America. God bless the freedom of speech. All right, Don.
Amen.
Take care, brother. Peace.
Bye-bye.
Bye.